It's Reed Young, aka Shuda here. I'm reviewing a hand in small stakes no limit on the popular poker forum 2+2. We are in the small blind playing $100 buy-in no limit, and we raise it to $3, which is a pretty standard size. Our opponent calls, and we have Jack 10 offsuit, which, some games you might not want to raise this hand pre-flop if you're getting beat up on. Our read on our opponent isn't insanely solid, but I think against the average $100 buy-in player, raising Jack 10 should be standard. So we raise pre-flop, we get called. I would put our opponent on a range of decent Broadway hands, suited and unsuited connectors, and a bunch of weaker ace-x type hands, as well as medium pocket pairs for the most part, maybe the occasionally slow-played hand. So we see a flop, it's 10 high, so that's pretty good for us because we have top pair. And we continuation bet $4 into 6, which I think is fine. You could also consider checking the flop to induce bluffs or semi-bluffs. And I think that type of play works out fairly nicely with the weakest 10s in your range. And I'm not saying you need to be checking Jack 10 here 100% of the time, but I think checking a crappy 10 is a good place to start just because we block top pair, and like we said, we're not really expecting him to slow play pre-flop very often, and there's a lot of semi-bluffs possible on the board. So if our opponent's randomizing by equity, we're not too worried about a set of 2s or a set of 7s just because how unlikely they are. Especially you can see the turns of 2, so there's only 4 combos of hands there that we're really that worried about. In addition to the occasional 10 with a better kicker. So anyway, kind of got sidetracked there. We continuation bet the big blind calls, which we expect him to do with a decent amount of hands, probably some of his best ace highs like ace 8 or better, especially stuff like ace 8 of clubs. Some weaker flush draws maybe, and some straight draws, and medium and top pair hands. I don't think he's going to have that many 2s in his range, so I think we can pretty much disregard that part of the hand. The turn is a 2 and brings another flush draw, and now our poster is questioning whether or not he should bet again or start inducing here. And I think the idea here is that there's so many different semi-bluffs on the board, and it's so unlikely that anyone has a 2. So the turn's essentially a blank, other than the fact it makes a club draw possible as well. I think we should be value betting again, and I would probably mix in check calling and value betting the river, depending on how well I thought my opponent was playing. And of course the river as well. If the river was something like the Jack of Diamonds, I think it would be kind of close between checking. I'd probably check a very low percentage of the time and value bet most of the time. But, like a Jack of Hearts or something like that, I think is a much easier value bet. Something like, I guess, the 6 of Diamonds would put us in kind of an interesting situation where value betting doesn't seem that great. Check folding kind of always sucks depending on our opponent. If he's going to be turning hands into a bluff, we're pretty worried about folding the best hand, and we're not really sure if we can check to induce very well, so just not really any good options there. That's kind of a con to betting the turn, but obviously the 6 of Diamonds only comes out so often, and scare cards that are just like that. So I think we need to value bet the turn to protect our semi-bluffing range, as well as get value from our opponent's worst hands like ace high, assuming that we just have an extremely wide and unbalanced semi-bluffing range on the turn, full of club combinations, straight draws, and maybe hands as weak as 2 overcards to the middle pair, so like king 8 offsuit or something like that. If our range is like that, then ace high is a slam dunk call on the turn, and he can play pretty well on the river in position if he has a decent handle on our range, or just assumes we're going to be value betting not enough for how much we're going to be bluffing, especially on certain rivers. So I think the turn's a value bet. Checking on the turn I don't really like with that many hands at all. I'd rather just value bet a pretty balanced range here after betting the flop. I think you could go for a turn check raise here and there. Probably balance hands like jacks plus with flush draws or straight draws, and go from there. If you need to add more bluffs to your range, stuff like overcards or whatever would be great. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you could hit the like button, that would really be awesome. And definitely subscribe to the channel if you like these hand reviews. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.